Got a Fox News alert for you right now. The Associated Press is reporting that the Navy Yard shooter down in Washington, D.C., Aaron Alexis, was apparently treated for serious mental issues by the VA because he heard voices, among other things. Joining us right now with the latest on the investigation is the mayor of Washington, D.C., Vincent Gray. Good morning to you, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
What's the latest this morning?
Well, we're continuing to try to bring things back to normalcy as quickly as we possibly can in the city. It was a horrific tragedy yesterday, unlike anything we've ever seen in the District of Columbia. 12 people having been shot to death by this man who was legitimately a contractor at the Navy Yard.
Was he armed when he walked in?
Apparently so. Apparently he was.
Both weapons?
We really don't know the details. That continues to be a part of the investigation. Apparently he used the handgun of one of the law enforcement officials in the Navy Yard after he got there. But that investigation is continuing to unfold to see what weapons he had, how many weapons he had, and how he used them.
Mayor, what's your message to the people there today in terms of going forward, how you see this not happening again and what measures are being taken for better security?
Well, I think, first and foremost, we've got to look at the procedures that were in place for contractors and contractor personnel, not only at the Navy Yard, but other military installations as well. It's clear that the Defense Department and other military installations are using increasingly contractors to get work done. But we've got to be absolutely sure that those who are a part of those, contractor organizations really have been fully vetted. There certainly are many questions around Mr. Alexis and how he ever got a credential to be able to get in the Navy Yard in the first place.
Sure, and what's troubling, Mr. Mayor, is the fact that apparently his security credential was updated in May, and yet, the federal government, if he's getting treatment by the VA for serious mental issues because he hears voices, among other things. Also, he's got this past where he shot up a car, he shot up a neighbor's apartment, stuff like that. It seems like the federal government is very large. Different departments need to be talking to each other so that we know that people who should not have clearance don't get clearance.
Well, we'll certainly look at all those procedures, not us directly as the District of Columbia, but I have no doubt that the federal government will thoroughly look at the procedures, the Defense Department, and should there be, and I suspect there will be, steps that need to be taken to make this more effective, I'm sure they will be taken as quickly as possible.
Time magazine says that you've cut back on security, or that shipyard has cut back on security. That according to an unnamed Pentagon official. Have you found that out?
No. As a matter of fact, I had a meeting just coincidentally last week with the Commandant of the Navy Yard, and we were talking about the fact that the security procedures there seem to be quite effective. We go to events that are at the Navy Yard quite frequently, so I've been on the yard, the base, any number of times, and even as I go through there, I have to go through a clearance process. So, again, all of those procedures will be examined, and whatever changes need to be made, I'm certain that they will be made.
Mr. Mayor, have you spoken with the families of the victims today?
No, we're going to do that. We still were continuing to notify them as of late last night. The identification process went on throughout the day. As of about 11 o'clock last night, 7 of the families had been notified. I will personally be speaking with the families. Of the 12 families, one of the workers lived in the District of Columbia, and then the others were in Maryland and Virginia. But I will be speaking with all of them. All
right. Mayor Vincent Gray joining us from the Bureau down in D.C. Sir, thank you very much.
Well, let me just bring you a little bit more about that shooter in Washington Monday. As we told you just in the last few minutes, it's emerged that the gunman in Washington was being treated for serious mental illness, apparently hearing of voices. The police Tuesday obviously now ruled out any other suspects in the shooting and the killing of 12 people, but a motive is really not clear at all. That news about him being treated for serious mental illness, that came from the Associated Press, the news agency. The U.S. Senate, by the way, which was locked down, shut down yesterday, that's back in operation. That's just been announced by the Senate Sergeant at Arms. So things beginning to come back to normal in Washington. The president, as we've been saying, expressing seemed to be his frustration over the lack of progress on gun control, despite this latest mass shooting in Washington. The gunman, as I was saying, has been treated for mental illness. That's it from GMT, from me and my team. Goodbye and stay well.
The McCallum. So the police are now saying that 34-year-old Aaron Alexis acted alone. But investigators are still searching for the reason why. As we hear for the first time the radio chatter of the first responders as all of this began 24 hours ago. Listen to this.
We got a report on the 4th floor, a male with a shotgun, multiple shots fired, multiple people down. We have an active shooter on the 4th floor. I'll get you an update on the building location with several victims down.
We have an officer down, building 197 on the 3rd floor.
Boy, what a tragedy this was. Look at those people. That is too familiar a scene. People walking out of buildings with their hands over their head, afraid that they're going to get shot at if they appear to be anybody but themselves at those moments. We now know a bit more about this man. Alexis was a former Navy reservist. He served in Texas and in Illinois. He was killed after trading gunfire with the police yesterday in that building 197. No word on whether he took his own life in that moment. Also, no word on what the motive could have been for this shooting spree, but we do know that he had 3 weapons at his disposal, including an AR-15 assault rifle, which we have seen in several of these tragedies recently. We also now know some of the names of the victims, all civilian employees at the Navy Yard, although I want to point out some of these people were in the Navy for many years before becoming civilians after leaving the military. We're going to have more on these individuals and who they were coming up.
This is how it all went down. 8:37 a.m. local time. Metro Police confirm an active shooting situation at the Navy Yard. 9:25 a.m. Just about 24 hours ago, a Navy Yard spokesman speaking live here in America's Newsroom confirms multiple injuries and fatalities. 9:45 a.m. Signs of rescue. A U.S. police helicopter lowering a basket on the roof of a building. Then minutes later, the chopper appears to transport a person away. We watched that repeatedly yesterday. 9:56 a.m. reports that a mass casualty triage is being set up outside the Navy Yard. 2 minutes later, 9:58, reports of at least 10 people shot. 10:18 a.m. reports source to a defense official who says the shooter is contained but not in custody. 11:38 a.m. wire reports say the shooter, Aaron Alexis, age 34, is dead. Rick Leventhal continues our coverage from that point forward. Navy Yard in Washington. What more do we know about this mental illness that was just reported an hour ago, Rick? Good morning there.
Good morning, Bill. The Associated Press is reporting that Aaron Alexis had been treated for a number of mental illnesses, including paranoia, sleep disorder, and had been hearing voices in his head. We know from family members in Brooklyn that he had responded, they say, to the 9/11 terror attacks and had claimed to be mentally scarred by that experience. We also know that he had an arrest record, including a shooting incident in Seattle back in 2004 when he shot out the tires of a car belonging to a construction worker. He told police that he had an anger-induced blackout, and in 2010 he shot a round through the ceiling of his Fort Worth, Texas apartment into a neighbor's apartment upstairs. He had been having a dispute with her. He complained that she had made too much noise. He applied for an early discharge from the Navy the following year, and despite an overall pattern of misconduct, he did get that honorable discharge and managed to get a job as a civilian IT contractor, which brought him here to the D.C. Navy Yard for work. He used, according to the FBI, a valid ID to gain access to the base yesterday morning. Last night, police obtained search warrants for his rental car here at the scene and his hotel room in Southeast D.C. They're also scouring his online profile, his computer and phone records, searching for more clues as to what might have sparked his shooting spree, Bill.
The Navy Yard behind you, is it reopening this morning, Rick? What's that status?
Yeah, the Navy Yard is reopened. Other streets and highways around the area have reopened. Schools and government buildings also back in business this morning. But building 197 is still a crime scene, and the FBI evidence response team is there scouring it for clues, and they may be there for the next couple of days.
There's still quite a bit of work left to do inside processing the scene. I would expect them to be there for the next couple of days finishing up. It took us a while to clear the building with our tactical teams, and they haven't actually been in there that long processing the evidence on scene. So I would say, 48 hours wouldn't be unreasonable.
And Bill, there are now questions about security lapses here at the Navy Yard. A new, soon-to-be-released government audit says that the Navy, in an attempt to reduce costs, let down its guard to risk posed by outside contractors here and at other facilities in an attempt to reduce access control costs. One congressman claims that numerous felons gained access to military installations across the country because of insufficient background checks.
I know that